by the way, we're talking about an individual who was pretty much smeared by every single three-letter agency on Earth, investigated to the nth degree, and nothing stuck to him. And that's why they call him the Teflon Don. I don't like him. I don't care. How you doing, bud?
Yeah, whether you like him or not is so far down the list of relevant questions at this point.
Doesn't even matter.
Would I want to spend a weekend going on a camping trip with the guy? Probably not. Do I want him to be my president? You bet your sweet ass I do. Because when you consider the sheer numbers involved, it would almost be impossible that some of it wasn't going to nefarious black book CIA operations, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would be very surprised if a significant portion of it was. See, I'm one of those people. You have to make an assumption.
88 cents of every dollar, my friend.
You have to make an assumption. Either we have the worst intel agencies on Earth, or there are actually 5 active cartels on our border. One or the other has to be true. So I don't believe we actually have 5 active cartels. I think we have the appearance of 5 active cartels and a handful of CIA ops. That's my guess.
Well, yes, and following on from that, we have to then ask the question: how much of the cartel activity is being propped up by taxpayer subsidized NGOs that are only now just getting shut down through the shutting down of the USAID fraud machine?
Sure,
we've all seen it happening. These migrant focused NGOs just going out of business, shutting down operations one after the other. You know, does anybody actually think those two events are unrelated? Because that would be a pretty damn big leap of faith to say that.
My first channel idea was Meat and Fire. That was going to be the name of it. Going to be slow motion, high graphic shots of building a fire and cooking some meat on it. I thought that might work. Turns out that's a lot of freaking work, bro. And the camera angles and everything. And I'm in Georgia, so everything fogs up. It was a nightmare to try to do that. So
you could call it conversion therapy for vegans.
All right. So if you happen to be sitting in the Oval Office and all the lights go out, you're fucked.
And yeah, I love that it was Trump who was holding the actual light dimmer. Did you see that? That was freaking awesome.
I missed that. Oh, it's beautiful. Ooh, I love trolls. God, I love trolls.
I know. You want a job done right, do it your damn self.
Damn right.
And the piece of video that he's playing, obviously, is the guy who is the leader of the main opposition party in South Africa, who is in a stadium that's full of 20 or 30,000 people, and he's chanting, kill the farmer, shoot the boar, shoot to kill, liquidate all the white people, in other words. And this is exactly the sort of thing that President Ramaphosa was just trying to tell President Trump, oh, that's not happening. You're just imagining all that. So this is what it looks like when President Trump brings the receipts on a motherfucker.
Well, what he said is you'll learn what's going on in South Africa when these 3 men here tell you what's going on in South Africa, and I can have that conversation. And instead, Trump played the video. Welcome to the age of YouTube, motherfucker.
Yes, and then after that, we get the president trying to save face by saying, "Oh, well, this guy's not in government, so that's not a government position." And then Trump quite correctly says, "Well, he's filling a frickin' stadium full of people who are chanting these slogans along with him, so that doesn't reassure me very much, Mr. President."
Yeah, I'm not real sanguine with this idea.
Yes.
I want you to pay special attention to homie right freaking here. Y'all see that guy? This is not this dude here. This is his opposition. This is the guy actually in power. This is the guy that's running to depose him.
Right.
Okay. So this guy is trying to say that this isn't happening.
Yes.
And look at the look on, just watch his body language while this plays, because he knows he's going to lose this election. So I'd like to ask you a question. Where does the food on your table come from?
The grocery store. Ha!
And where do they get their food? From farmers, right? This appears to me to be a depopulation method that's going to play out in about 2 years. Well, remember, you're the carbon they want to reduce. So congratulations.
It's remarkable, I think, watching people just repeat the exact same mistakes that have failed down through history over and over and over and over again. Because I'm going to tell you right now, every scheme that ever sought to redistribute land from the ownership class to the worker class, it's only ever had one result, and the result is famine and human despair. That's the only result that land redistribution schemes ever have. And here we see South Africa going back down that same old road. And for those of us who are old enough to remember having been alive in 1990, it is quite lamentable indeed how far away we are from Nelson Mandela at this point.
Rhodesia. Do we remember Rhodesia? I would run a gambit to say that most people do not remember Rhodesia, but Rhodesia performed this exact same magic trick where they waved a wand, redistributed the land, and killed millions of people in the matter of like a few years.
Less than a decade. And that really takes some doing. And they pulled it off. They used to be the breadbasket of Africa, and now they can't feed their own people.
Right. And it's because And misappropriation of lands leads to misuse of land, and misuse of land leads to degradation of land.
And you had people already on the land who were citizens, loyal citizens of your country, who had been on the land for generations and generations and just wanted to keep being responsible stewards of the land. But you couldn't allow that, could you? You had to make a famine instead.
You could have just had a chicken, you know?
Yeah, you had to make a sacrifice to the race pandering god.
Oh, that's the ones. Yeah, I tried to make a sacrifice to them, and they didn't like it. Essentially, homie over here is just kind of trying to ignore.
I know. I've been watching homie over there,
and Trump's making a point of watching every single frame and checking where Secret Service is at occasionally.
And I want to throw something out right now. Isn't there a larger, more overarching question that needs to be grappled with in many parts of the world, including our own? And it's a question that underpins the entire race pandering industry, and I would submit contributes much to the phenomenon of black fatigue. And the question is, how long do a people have to be in a place before they are no longer colonizers?
So how do you respond to this if you're this guy? Because that's where we're at now.
He really has no option except to go the route that he does go, which is to say, well, that guy doesn't currently occupy a government position, so he's just an opposition agitator, so he's not expressing anything that actually comports with government policy, even though that's a lie. I can't think of any other possible thing he could do after having this stuff thrown in his face in this manner.
Well, the intro quote kind of says it all.
It really does, yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's the whole story in a nutshell. You don't really need a whole lot more. Let's listen to what he has to say about it there.
Yes. I was just going to say the exact same thing. The first thing the news media do is they try to change the subject.
Yep. And do you see the smile homie fucking drops?
He knows who his wingmen are.
Yeah, he literally actively scoffed when he got asked about the jet.
And you're a disgrace. No more questions.
And you're a disgrace. God, I love Trump. We need less killing of the whites. There's too much killing of the whites. We need less killing of the whites. The killing of the whites is very bad.
I could make the argument that we need less killing of everyone. All right, hold on. If anybody out there works with AI, I would like you to take this scene of Trump fielding questions with the reporters actively live and compare it to what would have happened had Biden been there.
Man, Trump 2.0 gives exactly 0 fucks, and I am here for it, and I love it so much.
That's brilliant. JD's over here with his freaking I smell a fart face. Only the state may take the land. The individuals who do the killing are just, political dissidents. They're nefarious ne'er-do-wells. They're useful idiots, but it is the state that comes in and the land.
I'm trying to think back in my mind. When is the earliest socialist land redistribution scheme? Wouldn't it probably be in the Soviet Union in the late 19-teens and early 1920s? And we know that resulted in a famine that saw 20-odd million die. And every land redistribution scheme since then has been built on exactly the same rationale. It hasn't even evolved at all. It just says, well, let's throw out the ownership class and the managerial class, and we'll just turn all this stuff over to the workers. They know how to work it anyway. It'll be great, and we can just kill all the other people, and everybody will be exactly as mediocre as the other guy, and it'll be Fantasyland utopia.
When we were backstage, we were having a conversation, and I said, this is a byproduct of people believing people are cogs and not believing they are people. You
Correct.
Can't cog people. People aren't cogs. When you try to cog a person, they resist the shape of that cog and will not function in the space you put them in.
Yeah, people really don't like it when you try to take away their humanity.
What do you do in this situation? How do you rectify a entirely? It's the Maoist revolution all over again, but in South Africa.
Well, yeah, and I think there still is a perception in our country and in much of the West that South Africa is still kind of the happy, hopeful place it was in 1990 when apartheid ended and Mandela got out of jail and got elected president, and everybody's happy and smiling and reconciling, and there's been a long and very dark downward spiral since then that I think a lot of people would rather not talk about, and that's the thing that President Trump right here in this room that we're watching is making us confront and making them confront. And more power to him for doing it.
Absolutely. And it's something that the world has turned a blind eye to for the past 20 years that has only been snowballing into like modern proportions.
That's what that idiot talks about.
But all right. So I suspect there may be a cultural element here where he thinks he is being browbeaten for not having enough wealth to buy off the president of the United States. I think that's what he's hearing. Because look at his face. He is as contrite as he could possibly be. I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you, bro.
And it's like I just said, Trump 2.0 gives zero fucks about anybody.
Yeah, have you ever seen that system? All right. So, all right. I know this is completely off topic, but I just nerded out for a second. You're going to have to deal with it. All right. So, I think it was MIT, but I'm not certain. Could have been DARPA, but they wanted to test it in like a few U.S. cities. It was determined that it was a little too invasive because of reasons or whatever. I don't. Anyway, it was actually deployed in, I think, Johannesburg, although it might have been one of the other South African cities, but it was deployed to South Africa, and it utilizes like ultrasonic frequencies from gunfire to determine location and direction of bullet travel. It actually hears the bullet flying through the air and knows where the bullet is at and can tell you where the individual was that shot the bullet when it fired. How many bullets?
Sounds like a pretty tactically useful thing.
Exactly, and it was deployed in a city in South Africa, and supposedly has been used to like fast track responses. So within seconds of a bullet firing, a code goes out over the radio, and all of the officers in the area can just close on that area rather than having it going through radios and stuff. You know, you're not calling in there was 5 shots fired on 3rd Street. They know where the shots were fired within 2 or 3 feet.
The one thing I find regrettable about this footage that we're watching is everybody's still kind of dancing around the central question that we're not talking about, which is, and we should talk about it, which is how did we get from the happy, hopeful, new dawn post-apartheid South Africa of 1990 to the dystopian hellscape that we see before us today, with white farmers being expropriated forcibly without compensation and having to flee as refugees to the United States. Because isn't that something that Warren's talking about? How we get from that point A to that point B? And couldn't we argue pretty freaking compellingly that the way we get from that point A to point B is by starting to go down the road of racial quotas, even a little bit? Because when you go down the road of racial quotas, don't you always wind up in a place that you would rather not be in?
Well, I just kind of do everything that Charlie Manson didn't want us to do. As long as we're not living in a world where Charlie Manson was right, I think I can get along pretty well.
Because what was the main problem you had if you were the South African government in 1990? You had a bunch of institutions, but the only people who knew how to run them were the people from the former white ruling class. So obviously there is some kind of a need. I don't want to say that racial quotas would have been unavoidable, but maybe they were unavoidable in a situation like that, because you can't keep going on forever with white people being the only people who know how to run the shit. You have to teach the other people how to run the shit, don't you, at some point? The people who are the majority of the population. But how do you go about implementing a thing like that without starting yourself down the slippery slope of all the bad places that racial quotas eventually lead to? And I don't know what the answer is.
Don't is the answer. And the problem I have with it is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if you overextend your action, the reaction becomes equally overextended. And I'm afraid that world politics has shifted so far left that the shift right is going to be calamitous.
Yeah, and it's going to wind up being far beyond anything that the average person on the right actually want. But that is what you get when you play games with the Overton window.
Exactly. When you engage in social engineering, you have the laws of unintended consequences. Something about that statement about the cogs and people being people and not cogs. This is all saying the same thing. That's all I got to do is get him involved in some more shit.
But you know what thought just occurred to me as we were watching that? Just in the amount of footage that we've watched since we started this thing at the beginning, I think Trump has spoken more words than Joe Biden spoke in public in the entire first 6 months of his presidency.
This is something I've been saying about Trump since the very beginning. Everybody's worried about what Trump's thinking, what Trump's saying, what Trump's got going on. If they just unblock his fucking Twitter, he'd tell you. He'd just straight tell you exactly what he's thinking and what he's going to do, and you don't have to wonder about that shit at all. But instead, they silence the goose so you can't hear the honk.
Right, and that's always been the most hilarious part about the allegation that he traffics in dog whistles to racists. Like, the man's central defining character trait is that he always says what's on his mind, but he's going to start sending out coded messages about being a racist. You're really going with that? I mean, really, right now, fake news media, you're really doing that? But they are, because they can't help themselves.
The next bit that I brought before the panel, as it were, is it is AI generated. This is not real, people. So don't get your pacemaker into an uproar.
It's not real, but it's absolutely fantastic.
It might become real. But this, I don't know how she'd be able to run for president given that her platform's already been exposed by AI.
I mean, if she did run for president, it would sound pretty much exactly like I think
Your
we can
future American
rest assured
president,
in that.
AOC.
Today, I, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, am announcing my candidacy for president of the United States of America. A lot of people say that I'm not patriotic, but my IQ is 76, and all forefathers signed the Constitution in 1976. You don't get
Oh, wow. Okay.
more patriotic than that. A lot of people think I'm fake, that I'm phony, that I'm inauthentic.
What up, Desert Goat?
But you know what I say to that? Being fake is a good thing. It isn't 1952 anymore. It doesn't matter if we're technically correct. What matters is that we're morally right.
I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
It's better if people think you care when you don't than think you don't when you do.
I love it, dude. I love it. Whoever did this, man. This is
I know, but she is one of those people in our political ecosphere who is so absurd she has rendered herself meme proof. You can do an AI generated absurdity of her that is completely indistinguishable from the real her because that's how absurd she is.
Oh,
And how is a culture supposed to grapple with a thing like that? I don't know.
we elect him president? I mean, we're living idiocracy, bro. You know,
I cannot believe this person is in Congress. I can't believe our girl LaMonica, the forearm shiver queen, is in Congress. I can't believe half the people who are in Congress are in Congress.
I mean, we also elect wrestlers and actors all the time.
Being a great president is about perception. It's not about doing great things. It's about making people think you're doing great things. Remember that time I got fake arrested and put my hands behind my back to pretend that I was handcuffed?
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pretending that she was handcuffed, all for show, before pumping her fist to a crowd of cheering supporters. She's putting her hands behind her back as if she's handcuffed. There were no handcuffs to be seen.
These are the kind of theatrics that I will bring to the White House. I don't really care about immigrants, but people think I do, and that's good. Donald Trump, on the other hand, he isn't really
I don't care about immigrants, but people think I do.
I don't really care about immigrants, but I do cry over empty parking lots, and that's what really matters.
Yes, the photo op.
racist, but everybody thinks he is. That's bad. The trick is to speak with confidence, even when you have no idea what you're talking about.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that? I think what I meant is like the settlements that are.
I think we should have edited in the Jeopardy thing there.
Just look at that. Look at that sheer terror in her eyes that somebody actually asked her a follow-up question.
No, sir.
You're not supposed to ask me follow-up questions. I'm not a real politician. What the fuck are we doing here? This isn't that kind of interview. God damn it. I think it was just like the Jewy kind of things that I didn't like so much because the Israelis, they always do kind of like Jewy stuff and Jewy stuff isn't like cool like other stuff is. If they would just do less Jewy stuff, I mean, that would be awesome.
Are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes. I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
People think I'm stupid.
See, she just got completely exposed right there.
Yeah.
She tried to get out of it by just throwing out muscle memory catchphrases, and then she realized, oh God, I really sound like an idiot here, don't I? And then she had to go to I'm not an expert on geopolitics. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah, I kind of
just in Congress.
We need congressional term limits. I think if we had congressional term limits, we would have a better arrangement of grift, graft, and corruption.
I don't see any good argument for why only the president and the vice president should be term limited and nobody else.
I mean, because throughout our childhood, we had cadavers for most of our lives in Congress. Like most of these people were over the age of 60, and the average American is 52, 45.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole bunch of sense. I can get for the wisdom of older men and older women, but there's a limit where it turns into a dimensional addled corpse, and we need to get them out before that point.
Well, yeah, that's why you don't want them in the actual high pressure decision making posts. You want them in the advisory post. The Asians understand this stuff so much better than we do. They've got the guys in their 60s who are actually doing this stuff and making the decisions, and then they've got the bullpen of 80 and 90-year-old guys who have got all the experience and all the wisdom that they can rely on when they need it. And that's the way you should run things.
And the old guys just sit around and play mahjong until a question needs answered, and they go, well, back in
exactly. And that is an ideal life to be living when you're in your 90s.
The three chambers of government are the presidential, the House, and the Senate.
To make sure that we take back all three chambers of Congress, all three chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House.
So look, yeah, I pretend to be dumb. Being a flirtatious bimbo has gotten me pretty far in life. But the
All three chambers of government.
I'm gonna let that one just soak in for a second.
There's the
anybody
one
out
and the
there?
other one and the third one. Come on, guys, everybody knows this. It's like when
Yeah,
it's like
the
when
one-
Joe
the other
Biden
one-
tried to recall the Declaration of Independence. Come on, you know the thing.
Come on, man.
truth is that I'm a lot savvier than you think. My boyfriend bought me a puzzle for my birthday last year. It said 4 years plus. But you know what? I finished it in just 6 months. So don't let them.
That might be my favorite thing in that video.
That is just mean, bro. That was completely unnecessary, but I love it.
I love it so much.
Everything a man can do. I mean, ladies, men aren't really that clever anyway. Am I right? My boyfriend doesn't even pay attention when he makes orange juice. I'm like, babe, it says it right there on the label. Concentrate. I mean, and if I'm so dumb, why are people still voting for me? I am a communist.
There you go. That's her platform.
It says it right there on the label. You have to concentrate.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. I mean, you know what communism is, right? We take everything from everybody so that everybody is poor except us. It's about redistributing wealth to me. Bernie basically said it the other day on TV.
Free Weekend says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years.
Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting at
What do you think I'm gonna do? Wait in line at the United Terminal with everybody with all the fucking unwashed masses? What the fuck do I look like right now? I ain't gonna do that shit.
We have the tiniest squish in here. I'm going to give that a participation trophy because it deserves it. Hey,
My
Squishy.
name's Bernie Sanders, and the more crazy things I do with my hands, it means the more sense I am making.
That's actually really good.
Well, you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
See, Bernie said it openly, and you guys still vote for us. We'll keep flying on our private jets, shooting a Brazilian gallons of CO2 into the atmosphere, while you guys all drive your government-mandated Nissan Leaf and eat your government-mandated bug protein. Like, why would anyone vote for that? But you do, because we do genius-level propaganda.
Go eat
All
your
right.
bug salad sandwiches, you
Wait.
saps.
We're basically geniuses. So when you vote for AOC, you're voting for, like, a genius. And just remember, we are morally right. So we never have to actually be factually correct. I'll see you guys on the campaign trail. Thank you so much, Los Angeles.
So
Being
This is where we're at.
factually correct is overrated. You just have to say things that make people feel good, and then they vote for you.
yes, or you can say things that make them feel scared, and that you
Yes.
might be able to fix it. Sell them a problem, and that you're the solution, and they'll vote for you every time. Everyone in the desert always votes for more water.
The bad orange man is waging an assault on the rule of law, and we have to stop him right now, guys.
If we don't do it, we might end up with a government that serves its purpose.
If you texted me just $5 right now to such and such text number, then you could be the one that helped me defeat that bad orange man. You want to help me defeat the bad orange man, don't you? Just $5. Did you see the rumor? I think it was, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, that Disney is potentially seeking to divest itself of Star Wars so that they can try to save Marvel? Because I guess that's where we are now with Disney. They have to cut bait on one of their brands so they can try and save the other.
I went back and watched all of the Star Wars movies, like the entire franchise from beginning to end. And I found out that George Lucas is an idiot. He's a moron. And I can explain. So the original 3 movies were made with a very limited budget, very limited practical effects, and literally no digital effects whatsoever. And so all the effects were practical. When he went back and remastered the original 3 films, he ruined all of the gravitas of some of the scenes. Like,
Yep.
if you could take it half of the slapstick bullshit that they added to the remastered movies out of it. And the worst part of it is, since they were coming off of the monetary high of having just released the prequels to do these remastered versions, they phoned it in. They just put a whole bunch of Larry Moe and Curly fucking jokes and a bunch of poop and fart jokes in the background and called it good. Frankly, I believe we are being looked down upon by someone who believes they are superior in intellect to us, and it becomes ultimately obvious in the final 3 films whenever all of the slapsticky bullshit takes place right out in front of you on the face of the movie and is actually part of the fucking plot. Moron. That's what they're calling you. Stupid. You jingling fucking keys in front of you.
Right.
Sorry.
And as far as the special editions go, it's not the special editions existing per se that bothers me so much. I understand why he wanted to make them. He wanted to add some new fancy digital stuff and re-release the pictures in the theaters and make a few more bucks, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. But the thing you can't do, the thing that people do have a problem with, is that you made the previous original versions totally inaccessible and verboten and forced people to only consume the special editions. And that's the thing that people had a problem with, I think, where George Lucas diverged from the Star Wars fan community.
And I believe you're absolutely correct. But he alienated the original gravitas of the films, because the films originally didn't have giggly points in it. There was almost nowhere that was funny. It was done like a Kurosawa film, you know. It was deep, it was dark, it was foreboding. And I was watching through and I went, like, that's like a couple of Cloud City scenes when they're walking through and it's like this huge, airy, vast dome. That would
like when they added the exteriors. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes. The exterior, the droids moving around, the other people. No. Cloud City felt like a janitorial closet from hell. The whole thing was a nightmare of just weird tube-shaped hallways and bad smells. There was nothing good about Bespin. Bespin was supposed to be like this kingdom in the clouds, but in reality, they didn't go to the kingdom part of it. They were only in the underbelly of this thing, traveling secretly. So they were smuggling.
I know exactly what you mean, because in the original version that we saw come out in 1980, the Cloud City had kind of a claustrophobic aspect to it that gets completely lost when you add those windows and those exteriors in the special edition, and it kind of changes the whole tone and character of the second act of the picture.
It does, because the one of the things that always intrigued me was the fact that it felt so claustrophobic, because it was so claustrophobic that Vader couldn't even hide from the droids. The droids accidentally stumbled across some stormtroopers and got disposed of real quick. It's so claustrophobic that just accidentally turning the wrong corner, and that doesn't look like the kind of thing that would accidentally happen in the remakes, in the remasters. There's just, it appears so much airier and so much wider and more expanseful. It's just not likely. What's up, Harpole?
And the other one of the other things I don't like about the special editions is that I think unwittingly he diminishes his own achievement in some cases, because those original special effects shots that you achieved, those were remarkable, amazing achievements for the year in which you created them, and you shouldn't want to get rid of those. It's just because it looks slightly cheesy from our perspective 30 or 40 years later doesn't change the fact that it was a splendid achievement in the time in which you made it. So why not just keep it? Anytime I'm watching a 40 or 50 or 60 or 70-year-old movie, I want to see it the way that people saw it when it was brand new. And I don't think Star Wars should be any different.
I mean, I always compare it to something else that I view as being like in the same ballpark. So I would say that the special effects on Star Wars, or rather the Return of the Jedi, was equivalent to The Thing. The Thing come out. Imagine if Homie went back and redid The Thing and added a whole bunch of special effects jokes into it. Like, nothing to actually improve the movie, but a bunch of slapstick comedy mixed into the thing. It would
and then he made it impossible to watch the original version that everybody loves.
I've got it. I've got all three of them on tape, on VHS. Probably.
Yeah, it wouldn't do anything for anybody. Everybody would hate it, with good reason. They would hate it, because when you start making wholesale changes to a thing that people are accustomed to, that they've been watching for a long time, and they're used to the way things go, and people don't like that. Don't mess with things that people have liked for a long time if you want them to keep liking you.
There's something a lot of old folks say, and it becomes something of a cliche, but at the same time, it's 100% accurate. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I'm guessing that's not hanging up on the refrigerator at Disney corporate HQ.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I don't believe that common sense is very common around them quarters.
But it will be fascinating to see, I think, if that rumor is true. If Disney is really going to sell off Star Wars, and more interesting is if the guy who buys Star Wars is named George Lucas, and if he buys it for less than he sold it to him for in the first place, because what kind of delicious poetic justice would that be?
From what I understood, right before he sold Star Wars, he had a plan of going into agreement with the writers, some of the writers, like a trifecta of writers that wrote for the extended universe, or was maybe Legends. I think it was Legends, and he wanted to go from the establishment of the New Republic to the fall of the New Republic due to the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. And that also includes, if you get a little bit sketchy on time frame, the entire Thrawn trilogy and duology, all in one, because all of that happened within like a 10-year span. And so then at the end of that 10-year span, the New Republic has fallen because the Yuuzhan Vong has completely obliterated the Navy. But the thing about the Yuuzhan Vong is they can't really beat you up if you don't fight them. They have a really honor-bound culture, and the only way they can make war on you is if you fight them. And that's usually done through resistance. They show up and try to kill somebody, and somebody fights back, and then they declare war, and it's an absolute genocide.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. You're the expert on that expanded universe stuff.